Every night, a sinister shape stands outside my window. 12 terrifying encounters exposed. Tara's heart raced each time the clock struck 10. The neighborhood dimmed, shadows creeping under the streetlights. Alone in her living room, she shook off the fatigue as she sank into the tattered couch. But each night brought a new nightmare. From behind the thin curtain of her window, a sinister shape watched, an obsidian silhouette against the moonlight. Tara's pulse quickened, her coffee trembling in shaky hands. How long had it been there? Was she losing touch with reality? The air felt electric as she remembered the last 3 nights she'd caught that ghostly figure lingering just outside, the figure that seemed to leer, mocking her solitude. At first, she convinced herself it was nothing. Just a wide trunk of a tree or a stray cat. But every time she glanced over her shoulder, dread clawed at her throat. She'd leap into action, rushing to the window, only to find the night empty but for the cold wind that whispered secrets only the darkness understood. Anxiety coiled in her chest. Was it too many long shifts? Too many nights spent scraping by at the diner? Or was something sinister truly lurking? No, it couldn't be real. She dismissed her fears until Emily's restless nights began. Her 8-year-old daughter cried out for her in that fragile, vulnerable way that made Tara's blood run cold. "Mommy, the man in the window is here again," Emily whispered one night, trembling under her blankets, her eyes large with fear. Those words echoed in Tara's mind, wrapping around her sanity. Could there really be a man, or was it just nightmares of a child? Determined to understand, she confided in Mr. Jenkins, rounded and jolly on the surface but whose kind demeanor concealed tightness in his eyes. He was the neighborhood's retired hero, yet, as they sat in her dim kitchen drinking coffee, something felt off. His skin seemed drawn tight over his bones, his smile too eager. When she spoke about the figure outside, his expression soured, and the air turned chilly. He told her about the unsolved disappearances that had plagued the suburb over the last year, each case creeping closer to her home. "Just keep your doors locked," he mumbled, but his eyes betrayed him, darting nervously to the window. Tara's heart dropped. Something about his gaze made her skin crawl, igniting sparks of unease within her. She wanted to trust him, but every time he spoke, shadows flitted behind her, whispering of darker truths. One evening, just home from another long, exhausting shift, Tara found Emily tossing and turning. The little girl cried, talking softly about secrets shared with the shadow, a figure she couldn't quite describe. Terror struck Tara's heart like a sledgehammer. Time to confront the truth. Tara clenched her fists, adrenaline surging as she approached the dreaded window. The dim light was barely cutting through the darkness beyond. Peering cautiously through the curtain, she saw nothing. But as she held her breath, a chill swept through her spine when darkness seemed to shift. Panic settled in rock hard at the pit of her stomach. Suddenly, Emily's scream shattered the night, echoing through her bones. It was a cry of pure, unadulterated fear, setting her on fire with dread. "Mommy! Don't look!" But before she could turn, the shadow lurked just beyond her vision, breathing malevolence into her home. What was it? The figure that had haunted her nights? Just as Tara threw open the curtain, a fleeting shape darted away, leaving her frozen, heartbeat pounding in her ears. What sinister force lurked outside, watching and waiting still? And worse, what shadows resided inside? With terror stark in her heart, she realized the worst fear was yet to come. Tara's breath hitched as she stood at the window, heart racing. The cold glass felt like ice against her palms, grounding her to the moment. She caught a glimpse of something darting, a blur of darkness slinking into the depths of the night. It was gone before she could scream. "Mommy!" Emily whimpered, clutching her stuffed bear tightly. The pink fabric was now stained with tears. Tara turned, her expression a mask of fear and determination. She had to protect her daughter, she had to understand what lurked in the shadows. "Stay here," Tara said, her voice low, almost a whisper. It felt heavy with the weight of her unsaid fears. But as she stepped away from Emily's side, every instinct screamed. She could sense a presence, lurking, watching, always just beyond sight. The house felt different, charged with a palpable tension. The sound of creaking floorboards echoed in the stillness. Tara paused, forcing herself to breathe. She had to be brave not just for herself, but for Emily. She slowly made her way to the hallway, searching each corner, every crevice looking for the source of her unease. "Mommy," the plea trembled from behind her, and Tara's gut twisted. It was hard to tell if Emily whispered it out of fear or desperation. "Stay close, Em." Tara tried to keep her tone steady as she led her daughter to the living room, where the light felt unwelcoming. Minutes passed like hours as they settled back on the couch. Tara pulled Emily into her arms, heart racing and a feeling of being watched prickling her skin. The clock ticked, loud and relentless. Each tick was a countdown to an inevitability that hung in the air, thick as fog. Tara's mind raced with fragmented thoughts. Could she trust Mr. Jenkins? Had something sinister somehow threatened their world? And then, she heard a faint scratching noise. It came from the window. The sound gingerly crept through the oppressive silence, drawing her attention like a moth to a flame. Every instinct told her to run, to bolt from the room, but she was paralyzed. As the noise grew louder, it morphed into something more, a whisper, calling her name in a voice too sweet, too oily to be real. "Mommy, open the window." The voice oozed with malevolence, a dark mockery of Emily's innocence. Her heart pounded as dread crawled through her veins. It sounded so much like her daughter, yet something was wrong. It seemed to lure her, begging for compliance. "Emily, stay down!" Tara shouted, her voice breaking through the demonic illusion. As she turned to the window, her heart dropped. The shadow re-emerged, no longer just the outline but now more defined, a face, twisted with uncanny familiarity, a smile that was not a smile, wide and hollow. The shadows coalesced, its eyes glimmering with a predatory glint, beckoning. "Mommy, let him in," Emily chanted eerily, as if entranced. Tara's blood ran cold. Panic surged through her. She dashed to the door, locking it, then retreating to her daughter. But Emily was staring past her, into the dark, unfazed. Tara clutched her tightly, desperately, but it was as if her daughter was elsewhere, lost. Tara's mind raced. How could this be happening? The insidious shape was no longer just a phantom in the night. It was hungry, and it wanted an invitation. Suddenly, the lights flickered in the room. A sharp crack of thunder echoed, and outside, the figure seemed to grin wider, as if it could sense their growing fear. Tara pressed herself against the wall, clutching Emily, feeling the fire of dread swell. The window exploded inward, glass spraying across the room. In an instant, the figure lunged, its grotesque face now only inches away from Tara's. She froze, breathing in terror, knowing somehow that none of this would end well. And then, a voice, deep, rumbling, filled with malice, filled her ears as a cold wind blew through the shattered window. "You've invited me, Tara." She squeezed her eyes shut, praying for it all to be a nightmare. But nightmares had a way of revealing truths. With her heart on the edge of bursting, she heard a single whispered word that struck her soul with horror, a name she thought she'd never hear spoken again. Mommy, what lay ahead would be far more than she could ever imagine. The darkness pressed in on Tara like a vice, the shattered glass glinting ominously in the dim light. Every fiber of her being screamed for escape, but her body refused to move. She could barely process what was happening. All she could focus on was Emily's wide eyes, mirroring her own terror, and the monstrous figure that loomed beyond the threshold. "Let him in, Mommy," Emily repeated, her voice almost melodic, yet utterly wrong. It carried an unnatural resonance, a beckoning that made Tara's skin crawl. "Emily, listen to me." Tara's tone was sharp, desperate. "You need to stay away from the window." But her daughter didn't respond. She blinked slowly, entranced, as if she were somewhere far removed from reality. The figure outside distorted its face into a horrifying grin, revealing rows of jagged teeth, glistening like blades under the faint moonlight. Tara's instincts kicked in. With trembling hands, she grabbed Emily and hurried to the back of the room, away from the window. Her heart raced while adrenaline pumped through her veins as she scanned for any way to protect her child from whatever horror was unfolding. The air thickened, the silence stretching so long it became unbearable. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the hallway. Tara nearly jumped out of her skin. The pounding on the walls surrounded them. Whatever was outside was trying to get in now, determined, refusing to be cast away. "Stay close." Tara commanded, pulling Emily fiercely against her side. They backed into the corner, the only barrier now a thin wall of paint and drywall. The lights flickered violently before plunging them into darkness. Tara reached for the small flashlight she always kept on the kitchen counter, her fingers fumbling in the blackness. With a click, the beam burst into life, creating a fragile bubble of light around them. Outside, the figure seemed to ripple, darkness overlapping darkness. It moved with a disconcerting fluidity, inching closer like a predator. Tara's breath quickened, each inhale feeling sharper, more ragged. "Mommy," it echoed again, so close now that it chilled her bones. "Help him. Let him in." "No!" Tara shouted, brandishing the flashlight like a weapon, though it offered little reassurance against the malevolence that lingered. "Get away from my daughter." With that, the room temperature dropped, a layer of ice wrapping itself around her. Tara's breath fogged in front of her, and she could see the shadows behind her dancing like restless wraiths. In that fleeting moment, she realized the entity was not just a monster but a cunning shapeshifter, feeding off her fears and her daughter's innocence. Then the whisper turned into a wail, a furious lament that echoed through the living room like a storm. "You cannot protect her, Tara." The voice twisted, angry and hollow, resonating in her bones. "She belongs to me now." Tara staggered, her legs weak, but she stood firm. "Not here. Not now." She had to fend off this evil. They had to escape. The walls vibrated with the intensity of its fury, and she could see the outline of the creature's arms stretching, claw-like fingers reaching for her, for Emily. "Hold on to me, Em." Tara yelled, and in that urgency, new strength surged through her. She turned toward the door, her resolve sharpening. They had to leave. They had to get away. But as she dashed past the living room, the oppressive darkness bulged and twisted, blocking their escape. A cold laugh echoed, chilling her to her core. "Where do you think you're going?" It hissed, the voice wrapping around her like barbed wire. Panicking, Tara scanned the room for anything to create a barrier. She spotted the heavy bookcase against the wall, filled with memories and old threats. With a desperate push, she thrust it towards the door, using her entire weight to block any path forward. A series of cracks splintered through the air like gunfire, the bookcase teetering precariously. Tara's heart raced, she wasn't safe yet. "We have to get to the basement," she urged, dragging Emily toward the hallway as the wailing intensified. But another blast of chilling wind swept through, sending them stumbling back. Tara barely caught her balance, but Emily stood rooted, eyes fixed on the window. There, the figure was melding back into the darkness, its face contorting one last time. A promise, hungry and malicious, echoed. "I'll be waiting." With renewed urgency, Tara grabbed Emily's hand, pulling her towards the basement door. They needed to find shelter from this sinister entity that lurked in the night. But as they reached for the doorknob, a thought struck her cold. What if the basement was precisely where it wanted them to go? Tara's heart pounded as one chilling word echoed in her mind, "Mommy." She hesitated, and in that split second, dread crawled up her spine. Were they really on the brink of escape, or had they merely stepped deeper into a trap? The shadows shifted, merging into one incomprehensible shape, and Tara felt the eyes of something dreadful pierce through the darkness as she stood at the threshold of uncertainty. Was there no way out? Before she could ponder further, the door slammed shut before her, and one whisper resounded through the room, slithering into her ears like poison. "Stay with me." The air grew thick, suffocating her in a blanket of fear as the darkness encroached, ready to consume everything in its path. What awaited her inside the basement? What shadows lurked there, just beneath the surface of her deepest fears? The basement door groaned under the weight of the darkness. Tara's heart crashed in her chest, a drumbeat of terror. The oppressive silence sent pinpricks of dread down her spine, and she could feel Emily's small fingers clutching her tighter, shaking slightly. "Mommy, I don't want to go down there." Emily's voice wavered, leaving a trail of doubt hanging in the air. Tara swallowed hard, her thoughts swirling with uncertainty. But somewhere deep within her, a grim determination flickered. They had to move. "Just a little further, Em. I promise." She breathed, then hesitated, glancing back at the window where shadows danced in a way that felt almost taunting. With a deep breath, she pushed the door open. The wooden creak seemed to mock her as darkness pooled beneath the threshold. A chill pricked at her skin, and with a shaky hand, Tara took the first step down. As they descended, the damp scent of mildew hit her hard. The beam from her flashlight struggled against the shadows wrapping around the staircase, like hungry fog eager to swallow them whole. Tara leaned down, trying to enhance the weak light, but the suffocating gloom seemed to cling to her, weighing her down. "Stay close, Em," she whispered again, though part of her wondered if she could really protect her little girl from the maw of whatever waited in the obsidian depths below. The last step echoed loudly, and they landed with a thud, swallowed by an expanse of utter darkness. Tara swept the light around the basement, revealing random boxes piled high, the air thick with the musty scent of old secrets. Shadows flickered, alive and threatening against the baleful silence. Then another sound sliced through, a tapping, rhythmic and deliberate, resonated deep within the basement's confines. It started soft, like a heartbeat, but quickly grew louder and more frantic, as if someone or something was trying to breach the walls surrounding them. Tara's blood froze. "Mommy!" Emily squeaked, her voice barely a whisper now. Tara turned to her, gripping her hand tighter. "What is it?" Tara asked, but she already knew. The tapping had morphed into a scraping, like fingernails clawing against wood. The shadow shifted again, morphing into vague shapes that tiptoed just outside the line of the flashlight's beam. "Let us out!" The voice from above growled, twisted and low, echoing through the basement. Tara's stomach dropped. It wasn't the entity outside. It was something else, waiting for an opening, a chance. Without thinking, Tara dashed to an old corner where remnants of furniture blocks created a flimsy barricade. She could hear Emily whimpering, still small and frightened. The tapping continued, relentless and rising in intensity as if the shape was forcing its way down into their sanctuary. "Mommy!" Emily pleaded. "I'm scared." "Me too, sweetheart. Just hold on. We'll find a way out. I promise." The trembling in Tara's voice was hard to swallow. They were trapped, and the walls closed in tighter with every frantic breath. Suddenly, the basement light flickered, dying momentarily before sputtering back to life. Tara caught a glimpse of a shadow looming to the side, something much larger than it should be. Her breath hitched, as a piercing shriek filled the air, shrill and overwhelming, drowning out everything else. The flashlight flickered again, and she caught a glimpse of a twisted, elongated figure. Its eyes burned like molten gold, and the mouth stretched wide in a maddening grin. "Let me in," it crooned, voice syrupy and smooth, reverberating through the basement walls. Tara's walls were closing in, not just of the basement, but of her own mind, panic cracking like glass. Her instincts fired as she realized they had to make a choice, become part of this terror, or break free at whatever cost. Before she could even consider the consequences, she snatched Emily's tiny hand and pulled her toward the other side of the basement, where a small window began to take shape through the shadows. The tapping intensified, and the walls trembled with violent rage. "You can't escape!" the horror hissed, nearly drowning out Tara's frantic thoughts. Just as they reached the window, a deafening crack echoed, shattering the fragile moment of hope. The darkness surged forward, ready to consume them both. What if there's no way out? Tara gasped, dread filling her as she wrestled with the window frame that wouldn't budge. But somewhere in the chaos, Emily's small hand grasped the edge of the frame, the childless fingers surprisingly strong. "We have to try," she squeaked. Tara's heart raced, but she dared not look back. They had to fight, or lose it all. But as the haunting laughter echoed, a single thought shattered the air: would they escape, or would the darkness claim them both? In an instant, they charged forward into uncertainty, racing against the darkness that attempted to swallow them whole. Tension weighed heavily in the air, insistent and unyielding. What awaited them on the other side? The window felt heavy, locked in place by years of neglect. Tara pushed against it, her muscles straining as the tapping grew more insistent, punctuating the suffocating silence. Emily's breathing quickened, a whistle of fear that only fueled Tara's urgency. "Come on," she hissed, her voice shaky but resolute. That laugh echoed in her mind, stretching into her skull like of ice. She couldn't give in to despair. Suddenly, the sound shifted, morphing into a low growl that sent ice racing through Tara's veins. It came from the shadows, wrapping around them like a thick fog. She turned her head, catching a glimpse of gleaming eyes in the half-light, watching them with hungry intent. "Mommy, please!" Emily cried, her small voice breaking the haze of panic. "I want to go home." The beast behind them seemed to sense their fear. It pulsed with energy, ready to spring. Tara's heart raced wildly as she relinquished the struggle with the window and turned to face the unimaginable terror threatening to envelop them. "Look," she whispered urgently, directing the beam of the flashlight toward the far corner of the basement. "There!" A darkened door led to another room, half hidden by the chaotic jumble of boxes and faded objects. A way out. Tara could almost taste freedom, but the shadows around the door writhed as if alive, their forms stretching and contorting. The growl morphed into a series of vicious snapping sounds, echoing like a trapped animal clawing for escape. Tara grabbed Emily's hand even tighter. Her grip was warm, a steady pulse against the chaos. "No time to waste," she urged, forcing herself to believe that they could outrun it. They sprinted across the uneven floor, each step matching the frenzied growls behind them. The beam of light caught flickers of motion, dark shapes shifting eagerly in their direction. Just as they reached the door, the faint light above flickered, then shattered, plunging the room deeper into darkness. Tara's heart skipped a beat. She fumbled for the handle, the cold metal sending shocks up her arm. "Mommy!" Emily cried, clinging tightly to her waist. "Just a second, baby!" Tara panted, as she twisted the handle desperately. The door resisted, and she felt panic lace her thoughts. The laughter echoed again, mocking her, "They will always find you." Then, with a sudden jerk, the door cracked open, and Tara squeezed through, yanking Emily into the narrow hallway. An icy draft rushed toward them, flicking at their exposed skin. The corridor stretched away, swallowing the remaining light. "I can't see," Emily whimpered, trembling next to her. "Just follow my voice, Em. Stay close." Tara pressed on, inhaling the chilling air that rippled with dread. The darkness felt alive, every corner could hide something grotesque waiting to devour them. The growls lingered, staying just out of reach, yet palpable enough to tighten their chests. Tara glanced back, but the door they had just fled slammed shut with a thunderous boom, locking them in this suffocating labyrinth. The sound ricocheted, echoing down the narrow passageway, merging with the whispers of 1,000 voices that resonated through the walls. "They're coming!" Emily moaned, her eyes wide and filled with terror. "Not if we move fast," Tara shouted, purpose igniting her fear. They stumbled onward, weaving through the darkness that threatened to entrap them again. Each step felt like a race against something sinister, the air thick with anticipation. They turned a corner and faced yet another door, this one looming and weathered, its surface marked with scars of time. Tara pushed against it, hesitation creeping in as the whispers grew louder, clawing at her sanity. "Can we go through?" Emily's voice trembled, her small fingers twitching beside Tara's. But when Tara reached for the handle, she hesitated. Something wasn't right. A sense of impending doom pressed against her lungs. "Wait!" A rustle came from behind, followed by a low, guttural growl that echoed menacingly. It wasn't just the shadows that hunted them now, it was it. The shape was back. Prowling closer, eager for the taste of their terror. "Go!" Tara screamed as she flung the door open with all her might, the sudden rush of fresh air hitting her like a slap. They stumbled into the next room, revealed by a dim light spilling from a cracked window, the kind that beckoned with a glint of hope. But the growls chased them, furious and relentless. "Mommy," Emily whispered with wide eyes, staring at the ink-black shape swirling at the threshold. "What if it follows us?" They had crossed a threshold into something new, but the question hung heavy in the air, had they truly escaped the darkness? As Tara took a step back, a realization pierced her heart, they may have found refuge, but the hunt was far from over. What other horrors awaited them in this new nightmare? The room was small and cramped, cluttered with remnants of an abandoned life. Dust motes danced in the narrow beam of light filtering through the cracked window, but the atmosphere was stifling, thick with dread. Tara pressed Emily against her, trying to shield her from the looming darkness. Stay quiet, she whispered, her own voice trembling. The growls from the previous room faded into a tense silence, but the air vibrated with something worse. The feeling of being watched prickled at her skin. They stood frozen, hearts pounding. The shadows at the door seemed to thicken, pulsating like a living thing. Tara's mind raced. What if it could smell their fear? What if it could hear their heartbeats? She squeezed Emily's hand, a reassuring squeeze, but doubt knotted her. We need to find a way out, she said, more to suppress her own uncertainty than for Emily's sake. Moving cautiously, Tara picked her way through the debris. A faint sound sliced through the silence, a scrape of claws against wood. Instinctively, Tara's stomach dropped. She turned to the door, heart racing again. The sound came again, a low, rasping breath, followed by a soft, taunting laugh that echoed from the dark hallway outside. Do you hear that? Emily's wide eyes searched Tara's, her small stature trembling with fear. Just stay close. Tara's voice was almost a whisper now, fragile and almost broken. She scanned the room for something, anything that could block the door, in case it managed to push through. A desk sat nearby, its surface dull with age, weighing down papers that fluttered like trapped birds in the draft. I can't stand here, it'll find us, Emily murmured, glancing fearfully toward the door. Then we have to move. We need to. The creaking of the door interrupted Tara, a slow scrape that sent shards of ice through her veins. She flung herself toward the farthest side of the room, grabbing Emily's arm, ready to bolt to the next door if needed. Then, the handle jiggled. The door rattled ominously as if something outside was testing its strength. Open up, came a sing-song voice, dripping with malice. You know you want to let me in. Tara's heart was a hammer in her chest as panic burst within her. No. We can't let it in. With a primal urge, she lunged toward the window. Desperation clawed at her, and she yanked it open, shards of glass jarring against one another with a sharp sound. The autumn night air flooded in, tinged with the scent of damp earth and decay. Mommy, please. Emily pleaded, tears streaming down her cheeks. What if it gets in? What if it gets us? Tara's mind spun. She could leap out into the night, but what lay beyond? A swift escape might just lead them deeper into danger. The room trembled as the door shuddered violently, the beast outside fierce and impatient. Climb. Tara instructed, trying to steady her breath. She pushed Emily toward the now open window, praying there was safety on the other side, somewhere anywhere away from whatever haunted them. Suddenly, the door burst open with a thunderous bang, splintering against the wall. From the shadows emerged a grotesque shape, a figure draped in darkness, its eyes glowing fiercely like two fiery coals. No! Tara screamed, pulling Emily back as the thing stood silhouetted in the doorway, a wicked grin spreading across its face, revealing teeth far too sharp for any creature of this world. Achieve the night with me, Tara, it hissed, its voice slithering through the air. Your fear nourishes my existence. Time frozen. Tara grasped Emily, dragging her back as the thing advanced, muscles rippling under the skin as it prepared to pounce. Go! Tara urged once more, pushing her tiny daughter towards the window, panic flooding her veins. Just then, she locked eyes with the beast, feeling the weight of eternity in its gaze. The floor beneath them shook as if even the house itself belonged to the horror that stalked them. With a final push, Tara lunged toward the window, summoning all her strength. But would it be enough? As they teetered on the edge of escape, the room around them trembled. And a new laughter, insidious and echoing, filled the air. What will you choose? It taunted. Surrender, or dive into the night? Would they leap into the unknown, or would the terror claim them before they could decide? The darkness whispered, circling around them, weaving a web of horror that promised only despair. Tara did not think. She shoved Emily through the window and followed, scrambling over the sill, her heart pounding as fear pushed her forward. The frigid air bit into her skin. They landed hard, but there was no time to assess injuries or pain. Run! Tara hissed, pulling Emily up, her tiny hands cold and trembling in hers. They stumbled into the shadows of the night, the moonlight a pale witness to their flight. Behind them, the laughter echoed, layering itself with a haunting melody that clawed at both girls' souls, a reminder of the horror they had just escaped. "Where do we go?" Emily gasped, her breath visible in the frigid air. "Anywhere but here," Tara replied, scanning their surroundings, aware that danger could be lurking in the dark corners. She turned left, pulling Emily into the dense foliage surrounding the derelict house. The branches snapped and crackled beneath their feet but offered the cover they desperately needed. The rustling continued, as if the trees themselves were alive, whispering secrets of despair. Tara's insides churned, every instinct warning her that something was close, something was hunting them. She felt exposed under the vast sky, like prey in an open field. Then came the unmistakable sound of footsteps behind them, brushing softly against the damp leaves. Tara's heart quickened. "We have to keep moving," she urged, her voice a mere whisper. They fled deeper into the woods, cloaked in night and fear. Every snap of a twig echoed in her ears, every whispered breath a reminder of their fragility. The laughter faded, but it was replaced by heavy, rhythmic breathing. It echoed through the trees, taunting them, reminding them they were not alone. "Mommy, I'm scared." Emily's voice broke through the stillness, trembling like a fragile reed in the wind. "I know, baby. Just hold on to me." Tara squeezed her daughter's hand tighter, feeling the warmth of her little fingers against all this cold. Suddenly, the trees around them began to whisper, words unintelligible but suffused with malice. Tara's heart slammed in her chest as she realized they were no longer in the familiar territory of the house, they had ventured deeper into a forest both unknown and foreboding. "Stop," Tara instructed, forcing herself to listen. The whispers wrapped around her, taunting, pushing questions into her mind. Had they gone too far? Was the monster still chasing them, or had they evaded it? In the distance, faint flickering lights appeared, glimmers of hope or another trap? They appeared tiny against the black void of the night. But hope blazed within her, strong enough to overshadow the fear. "Look, Emily! Lights!" Tara pointed, her voice lively as adrenaline surged through her. "We can make it there. Maybe there are people who can help." Ignoring the shadows that seemed to dance in the periphery of her vision, they began towards the lights. Each step heavier than the last, as if the darkness was pulling them back. Then a low growl rumbled from the heart of the forest, sending icy fingers of terror spiraling down Tara's spine. It was a sound that seemed to vibrate through the very earth, a warning vibrating in the air. Emily's grip tightened on her mother's hand. "Mommy, it's here. What if it recognized them? What if it followed them? Run!" Tara shouted, pushing Emily ahead, fear surging as they sprinted toward the lights, their breaths short and rapid. The growl intensified, morphing into a roar that rumbled the ground beneath their feet. With every step, the lights glimmered closer, but an unseen force seemed to shove them backward, trying to drag them into the depths of night. "Please!" Tara cried out, pushing them forward, thundering footsteps hot on their heels. Just as they burst into a clearing, the lights flickered and revealed a dilapidated cabin. But was there safety inside, or the embrace of something far worse? Tara hesitated at the threshold, feeling the tension crackle in the air. The growling hushed, but she felt the weight of eyes upon her, waiting for a choice. "Mommy, what do we do?" Emily whimpered, looking up, her eyes wide and terrified. The air thickened with dread as the cabin door swung open slightly, inviting them in or perhaps inviting the darkness to follow. Would they step into the unknown safety of the cabin, or would they turn around to face whatever hunted them? The choice lay heavy in the air, sharpening the silence around them as something deadly awaited their next move. Tara's heart pounded in her ears, merging with the distant growl that reverberated through the clearing, a visceral reminder that danger loomed. She took a deep breath, weighing the decision before her. The cabin door yawned open, an enticing but perilous gap in the oppressive dark. "Come on," she whispered, urging Emily forward. They stepped closer, the floorboards creaking underfoot as if the cabin itself was alive, groaning under the weight of centuries of secrets. Inside, dim light flickered from a solitary lantern that hung crookedly on the wall. Shadows twisted and whispered around them, merging with the stale air. Every instinct screamed for them to flee, yet the cabin felt like their only sanctuary, a thin barrier between them and the monster that prowled outside. "Where is the light coming from?" Emily's voice quivered, her eyes searching the corners. I don't know, but we need to be quiet. Tara's whisper barely bore the weight of her worry, she could feel the cold sweat sliding down her back. She eased the door shut, the slam resonating like a gunshot in the silence. The faint glow pulsed, illuminating a table littered with dust-covered objects: a broken doll, a rusty knife, and a cracked mirror. Each item seemed to hold a story, a glimpse into a past marred by tragedy. Tara hesitated, stepping back, terrified of what they might unleash. Mommy? Emily tugged at Tara's sleeve, her innocence a stark contrast to the terror that consumed them. Suddenly, the growl returned, louder now, reverberating around them, echoing their panic. Tara could feel it vibrating through her bones, each sound wave tightening the noose of fear around her throat. Hide! Tara whispered urgently, pulling Emily into a darkened corner behind the table, shielding her body with her own. They crouched low, breathing as quietly as they could, listening as the growl morphed into something more animalistic. It was hungry. A heavy thud echoed from outside the cabin, sending tremors through their hiding spot. Tara glanced at the window, her heart racing as she caught a glimpse of darkness shifting. Fingers gripped the sill, scrabbling for entry. Something or someone was trying to get in. I can't do this, Mommy, Emily choked out, her voice barely more than a whisper. You have to be brave, baby, Tara replied, her pulse quickening. I won't let anything happen to you. The thudding intensified, splintering the silence. Then, a gruff voice rang out, low and menacing. We know you're in there. You can't hide forever. Tara's breath caught in her throat, no longer only the growl of beasts. This was something with intent. A person, or something pretending to be one. Oh God, Emily whimpered, her small frame shaking. Tara looked down, her daughter's eyes wide and shimmering with tears of pure terror. Just then, a new sound pierced through the unmistakable creak of a door at the back of the cabin swinging open. Something was entering. A soft rustle followed, then a whisper that froze Tara's blood. I can smell you. The lantern flickered wildly, casting chaotic shadows that danced across the cabin's wall, bodies morphing into gruesome shapes that watched, waited, and hungered. Tara's mind raced as the floorboards creaked again, and she realized they hadn't closed the back door completely. It was a pathway into darkness, but could they make a run for it? Stay here, she whispered to Emily, slowly inching toward the light source, her heart threatening to burst from her chest. She had to find out what lurked at the back of the cabin. The whisper rose again, a slithering promise that choked the air. Let me show you comfort, let me show you what you truly fear. Tara felt the urge to turn and run, the instinct to protect her daughter roaring inside her. But she had to know what awaited them. The shadows flickered again as she inched closer to that door, her mind swirling with dread and urgency, an unhinged question clawing at her resolve. Could safety ever be found in a place that breathed dread itself? Tara hesitated, then whispered to the heavy air, "What are you?" The cabin trembled. Around her, the answer on the cusp of being revealed, and just then, something clawed at the door. Mommy. Emily whimpered. And Tara turned, sensing that whatever lurked behind them was closer than they dared think. Tara spun around, her heart in her throat. The air felt thicker, almost electric, as the door quaked under unseen pressure. Emily curled into her mother, the warmth of her little body a fragile comfort in the growing dread. Stay quiet, Emmy, Tara whispered harshly, trying to block out the whimpering fear that threatened to swallow her whole. A low growl rumbled again, but now it sounded strained, as if whatever was outside was struggling against something primal. Tara's pulse quickened. It was not just an animal. Then, a thud echoed again, more insistent this time, like a heartbeat. The lantern swayed, casting dancing lights across the room. Shapes moved within that darkness, twisting and turning, teasing her senses. She glanced at Emily, whose wide eyes reflected both trust and terror. A rasping breath filled the empty air, and Tara gritted her teeth. We need to find a way out, she said, her voice controlled but shaking. They had to move. She gestured to the back door. It was all but ajar now, a mere sliver of refuge, yet it felt like an invitation to hell. Just as she took a step toward it, the whisper returned, silk-smooth yet laced with venom. Don't be in such a hurry, dear one. Come play with me. Tara's blood ran cold. She resisted the urge to bolt, forcing herself to focus on the shifting shadows within the cabin. No longer could she hear the growl outside. It had been replaced by laughter, dark, sardonic laughter that cut through her. "Mommy," Emily whimpered again. Each syllable was a bead of sweat rolling down Tara's back. They had to confront whatever lay ahead, or they'd be trapped at the mercy of whatever lurked in the corners. With Emily close behind, Tara stepped toward the open door, ready to bolt. But as she reached for the knob, the shadow surged forward, coalescing into a figure that filled her with more terror than she could bear. It was a silhouette, almost human, but twisted, grotesque. The features blurred, merging into a predatory grin that seemed to stretch impossibly across its face. "Don't leave just yet," it crooned, voice honeysweet yet dripping with malice. "I long to show you things." Tara's instincts screamed at her to flee. But the hold it had over her, over both of them, was too strong. She yanked Emily closer, teeth clenched, heart racing as bile rose in her throat. "Let us go," she said, as much to herself as to her daughter, the words sounding almost defiant. They surged toward the back door, but the figure darted forward, a shadowy blur that moved with fluid grace, physically blocking their escape. Tara stumbled backward, the room spinning as panic clawed at her chest. "Why run?" it asked, eyes gleaming like coals in the darkness. "You're curious about the past, aren't you?" There was so much to learn before she could process. The door slammed shut on its own, rattling on its hinges. Tara felt the warmth of Emily's small hand in hers and squeezed hard, silent strength passing between them. "Mommy, please," Emily cried. Then, a low scraping sound began at the walls, nails on wood, a rhythmic chant that joined the sinister laughter echoing in the cabin. "Let me show you." It felt like the walls were closing in, pulsing with life, ready to swallow them whole. Tara grabbed Emily, clutching her to her chest, blocking out the horrifying noise that seeped into her brain. With a surge of defiance, she tore her gaze from the figure and turned to the window. Could they break through? "Stay close," she hissed. Determined, she moved toward it, her boots pounding against the floor. The figure's laughter turned shrill, reverberating around them. "Running won't save you," it yelled, a piercing scream tearing through the air. "You've stepped into my domain." Tara's hands grasped the window. Wood splintered around her fingers as she wrenched it open, the night air rushing in, cool and sweet and yet ominously heavy. "Jump!" Tara shouted. Just as she pulled Emily through, the figure lunged forward, a grotesque specter grasping for them. Tara felt a razor-like claw skim her back. She gasped, adrenaline flooding her system, and launched into the open night. They tumbled to the forest floor, breathless. But safety would not hold long. Silhouetted against the moonlight, the cabin stood firm, mocking them. The whispering laughter slipped through the trees, surrounding them like fog. "Where will you hide?" it taunted, a disembodied voice echoing across the clearing. Tara squeezed Emily's hand tightly, every instinct telling her this wasn't over. There was somewhere they had to go, somewhere they'd be safe. "Run!" Tara shouted, pulling her daughter close, as the growing darkness clawed at their heels, hungry and relentless. They raced toward the tree-line, hearts pounding, into the uncertain abyss ahead, unaware of what awaited them. Tara and Emily sprinted through the thick underbrush, branches snagging at their clothes, but they couldn't stop. They had one goal: survival. With every step, the cabin's malevolent whispers faded into the distance, but Tara's instincts screamed that they weren't free yet. The thing that had hunted them was still out there, its presence lurking just beyond the trees. "Mommy, I can't run anymore," Emily gasped, her little legs trembling beneath her. Panic gripped Tara tighter than the darkness around them. She reached down, scooping Emily into her arms and pushing onward, fueled by sheer will and the fear of what might come next. "Just a little further, Em. We'll find safety," Tara urged, pushing through her exhaustion and her doubts. They stumbled upon a narrow path illuminated by the faint glow of a distant light. A flicker of hope ignited inside her. It could lead them to a house, to help, or possibly to other lost souls who understood their terror. They broke into a clearing, where an old, abandoned shack squatted like a forgotten relic. Was it a trap? Maybe, but they needed refuge. Tara hurried toward it, ignoring the creaking of its fragile wood, the air thick with age and secrets. Inside, the floor groaned under their weight. Tara scanned her surroundings, frantically searching for old furniture or anything that could provide a barricade. The dim light flickered like a heartbeat, revealing cobwebs heavy with dust. Emily grasped her hand, eyes roaming the room, searching for reassurance amidst the decay. "Stay close," Tara whispered as she surveyed the windows. "We might be safe here for a moment." She moved to the nearest window, peering out into the blackness. The night felt alive, as if watching and waiting. The weight of anxiety pressed down on her. Suddenly, a low growl reverberated from somewhere outside, like the growl of a monster prowling just out of sight. Tara felt her heart lurch, a sickening churn in her stomach. "Not now, please, not now." "Mommy, what is that?" Emily's small voice trembled. Tara could feel her daughter's fear as a physical presence, a heavy pressure that threatened to drown them. "I don't know, baby," she murmured, holding Emily tightly against her side. They needed a plan, they needed to be proactive instead of reactive. They couldn't let fear dictate their next move. "We have to leave here. Now." Tara ushered her daughter through the dim and dusty space, trying to find a way out. But another growl grew closer, reverberating through the walls, filling the air with menace. They weren't safe here, they were in the path of that insidious thing once again. Tara knelt, recalling a long-forgotten wisp of memory from her childhood. "We have to stick together and beat it at its own game. We need to outsmart it," she said, trying to inject courage into her voice. "Like a monster hunter?" Emily asked, her eyes wide with hopeful curiosity. "Exactly. Like a monster hunter." Tara smiled gently, determination flooding her. They would become a team, fearless against the encroaching darkness. The growls intensified. Tara made her way toward the back door, holding Emily close, trying to breathe deeply and steady her racing heart. As she swung the door open, a sudden wind howled through the darkness, chilling them to the bones. They found themselves faced with an expanse of trees, a howling wind filling their ears. But it was time. They needed to break free. They needed to outrun the shadows that threatened to swallow them whole. "On three, we're going to bolt for the trees," Tara decided, clenching Emily's hand tightly. 1, 2, 3. They dashed into the night, weaving between the trunks, the ground uneven beneath their feet. The howling wind felt alive, almost angry, and the growls behind them morphed into furious roars, echoing through the trees. "Faster!" Tara urged, pushing Emily onward, but as they neared the thicket, she caught a glimpse of her shadowy pursuer emerging from the underbrush, the obsidian figure relentless and furious. "Mommy, help!" Emily screamed, her little legs pumping but struggling to keep pace. "I'm here. I'm always here," Tara shouted back, determination flooding her veins. But the creature lunged forward, a flicker of darkness that swirled ominously in the moonlight, claws glinting, teeth sharp and ready to take what it desired. In the next instant, Tara spotted movement to their right, a cottage perched at the edge of the woods, illuminated by flickering lights. It seemed inviting, whole, and real, as if it truly could offer salvation. "This way," she called, redirecting them with purpose. They sprinted toward the cottage, the growls booming in their ears. As they reached the door, Tara pounded on it with all her might. "Open up! Please, let us in!" she yelled, feeling the weight and urgency of the moment. The door swung open with surprising ease, an elderly woman peering out with kind eyes but an expression of utter shock. "What, please?" Tara gasped, hardly pausing to catch her breath. "We need help." As they darted inside, the door swung shut with a finality that jolted the air. For a moment, everything was silent, the growling, the whispering shadows, the chasing darkness gone. Tara collapsed against the wall as relief washed over her. "Mommy?" Emily quivered by her side, eyes shimmering with fear and exhaustion. "It's okay, sweetheart. We're safe now." Tara glanced around, the room quaint and alive with warmth. Sunlight flickered through lace curtains, the scent of homey spices filling the air. But the calm didn't last. The walls trembled slightly, a reminder that the darkness was not gone for good. The unseen presence thrummed with palpable rage just beyond the threshold. "Stay close," the elderly woman whispered, reality returning with a shudder. "He cannot enter without an invitation. We must stand strong." Tara nodded, clinging to Emily. "How do we stop it?" she asked, her heart heavy with the memory of darkness. "By confronting our fears. Our strength lies in bravery." The woman's voice resonated like an incantation, warming the air around them. Just then, the pounding against the door resumed, a relentless rhythm that shook the very foundation of the cottage. Tara straightened, heart racing, but now armed with purpose. "We face it together," she said, turning to Emily. "You're brave, remember?" Emily's chin quivered, but she nodded back, filled with fierce determination. "On three," Tara said firmly, grasping her daughter's hand tightly as the door rattled violently. 1, 2, 3. As they swung the door open, the light from inside shone fiercely into the night, illuminating the monstrous figure standing before them, eyes glinting with malice. Tara held Emily's hand tighter, ready to confront it, ready to prove that fear would not dictate their fate. This wasn't just a fight for survival, it was a moment that would define their lives. The darkness had come for them, but Tara shifted her stance, a warrior against the shadows. "Not today," she shouted, standing resolute and unwavering. Together, they had the power to push back against the darkness, to chase it into the night. And at that moment, Tara realized, true strength wasn't merely about escape, it was about the fire in their hearts, a light that could never be snuffed out. The battle between light and dark began, a new one that could echo across the years, proving that love and courage would always triumph in the end. So, what will you do? Will you confront the darkness, or will you let fear pull you under? You need to subscribe now to catch the latest tales that challenge fear head-on. Smash that like button now to keep us alive and thriving. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories about this thrilling conclusion, and show us your love. But don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who also dare to face their fears.